let me be very clear with all the fintechs and banks, which I am in every call I have with them. This isn't going away. This is the internet coming for a big part of your business. And the question is how you adapt to that, just like 20 years ago you had to adapt to the internet. That's what this is. This is the internet coming for the financial industry, period. And I think what's going to happen next is that you're going to see people getting into the crypto format in order to utilize DeFi. Right now, people get into the crypto format, they get into the tokenize my assets and put them in a Bitcoin or put them in a stable coin world because they see some kind of value in doing that. There's some kind of inherent value in just holding a Bitcoin or holding some kind of token. But I think what it's going to come down to is that the value of DeFi will be such an attractive force that people will be using the token dynamic and the crypto format dynamic as a way to basically use DeFi. And I think that that's going to be driven by two forces. The first force, which more and more people seem to be talking about now, is inflation. And unfortunately, that's a force that is continuing to be accelerated by global governments, central banks, Federal Reserve systems, and so on. And that's a force that's really not going anywhere. And then the second, and so people will seek yield. And if you look right now on Aave and other lending protocols, you'll see yield for stablecoins to the tune of 8%. Whereas if you look at bank accounts, you'll see below 1%. And that's just something that people haven't realized, and they don't have enough pressure on them from inflation to really care about. But once they really have that inflation going on and they really have that pressure to maintain the purchasing power of the assets they've worked their entire life to acquire, I think the place that's going to give them the best yield is where they're going to go. And that is, I think, going to be a large driving factor. The second large driving factor is going to be a number of failures in the global financial system and the assumptions that it makes about underlying value and that it makes about solvency and transparency of how a system works or how a system defines whether something is solvent. And this is something that I think is going to happen probably rapidly. I don't know if it'll happen gradually, might happen gradually. I'm not an expert in that, but I think it'll be really a matter of people learning week after week that their relationship with their assets or their relationship with an insurance provider or their relationship with a bank or their relationship with some kind of logo or brand is built on quicksand. And after a few of those brands don't deliver on their promises or aren't as solvent as people think or aren't as reliable as they've been led to believe, there will be a massive question of what is reliable. Where can I get reliability? Where can I get a transparent financial product? Where can I get a highly reliable system of contracts that guarantees me certain levels of risk and solvency and capital reserves around kind of my institution's holdings, my personal holdings? And I think the simple realization people will have, the same realization I had years ago, is that blockchains and hybrid smart contracts and decentralized finance is their only option. Up until decentralized finance, smart contracts, blockchains, the option people had was to go down the block to a different brand, which seemed like it had a better logo that would give them the same exact paper contract with the same exact basically bullshit story. And people had no choice. They would just be like, oh, your building looks really nice. You have wonderful pillars, right? This is why the banks in a lot of these mining towns and a lot of these places, they were the biggest, nicest looking building, right? They were better than the church, these banks. They had pillars. They were made of stone. They were amazing because they proved to people that, you're reliable. Here's my beautiful facade. I have enough money for marble. I have enough money for stone. It's a really reliable thing. This has been the agreement people have had for centuries with institutions and also with each other through institutions. And I think that there is every once in a while a reckoning about this. There's every once in a while a set of events that put that relationship into question. And so far, up until now, throughout history, there has been no alternative other than going down the street to the nicer bank with the bigger pillars and more stone and bigger bars on the windows and a nicer logo. But now you have an alternative. And I think that's the thing that is kind of amazing to me. because I don't understand why boom and bust cycles won't continue. By all accounts, every well-informed person in the financial world says boom and bust cycles will definitely continue. The boom and bust cycle is at an all-time high here, so the boom is really big. There's going to be some kind of bust. There's going to be some kind of return to reality. And invariably, when there is that return to reality, people always look for a better reality, right? They realize reality is really harsh. We all just took a 30% haircut. Some people got completely wiped out, and it's because we didn't know what was going on. It's because we couldn't manage risk. It's because they knew, but we didn't know. And amazingly enough, for the first time in history, there's going to be an alternative. And I personally think that when this boom and bust cycle happens, the alternative is going to be so attractive and so well made and so polished by that point that everyone is going to say, well, obviously, I want a cryptographic guarantee that you're solvent. And obviously, I want to know the exact mathematical conditions under which my assets will be, held in this state or that state, and under what conditions I can retrieve them, and that I control that. It's just a matter of people realizing that they need that from a bust cycle, creating that urgency and need. And I think that's probably going to be the large macro force that pushes the global financial system over the edge and completely into blockchain land, in my opinion.
Sergey, what do you think? What would you add to this conversation about traditional finance coming to DeFi?
Yeah, I would say that traditional finance and fintechs, just like a lot of the other entities in a capitalist system, are moved by user demand, right? So it comes down to user demand, and why will user demand gravitate towards DeFi, right? And so then there's the question of how will that happen? Why will that happen? I think that there is a skepticism about blockchains and DeFi and cryptocurrencies and all this stuff that's born out of a fundamental misunderstanding of how attractive this is to users. And I think this misunderstanding has permeated a lot of different bank conversations that we've had, and a lot of different conversations with fintechs. And a lot of these people years ago were saying, we're never going to need custody. We're never going to need to hold a Bitcoin ever. It's not going to even exist in a number of years. And then the users said, I want Bitcoin, right? I want Bitcoin. And then they said, I want other coins. And so now there's like this dash to get custody, right? To get custody as a fintech, to get custody as a bank. And I think what this shows is what the pattern is going to be. The pattern is going to be very simple. Banks and fintechs are going to say, I don't understand this. This doesn't take the shape of things that I'm used to. This doesn't work the way that I'm used to it working. I'm going to ignore it, or I'm going to think it's not real, or it's going to go away in a few years. Let me be very clear with all the fintechs and banks, which I am in every call I have with them. This isn't going away. This is the internet coming for a big part of your business. And the question is how you adapt to that, just like 20 years ago you had to adapt to the internet. That's what this is. This is the internet coming for the financial industry, period. That's what this is. You thought it was fintech interfaces taking your users. It's actually this infrastructure that's going to do everything that institutions do right now, but it's going to do it in a more controllable by the user, more transparent way. And so as a fintech and as a bank, I think what people should think about is how do they meet that upcoming user demand? So the first question is, will there be user demand? By the way, if the same guy who told you you're never going to need custody of Bitcoins is advising you on the upcoming demand from DeFi, fire his ass. He doesn't know how it works. He was wrong once, he's going to be wrong again. And you're going to be behind in the future, just like you are now with custody of crypto. If you're a bank, if you're a fintech, I would strongly recommend that you ask yourself when and why users will want to use decentralized finance or products. Here's one answer. A bank can give them 1%. On Aave, they can get 8%. The only reason they're not on Aave is because they don't know how to get on Aave. If you get them on Aave, that's it. And it's going to be the same story again and again with financial product after financial product. And so if you're a fintech and if you're a bank, I think what you should do is think about how can you provide access to these protocols from your interfaces.
because you own the user relationships, and you're very good at that, just like Kane said. And if you want to keep owning those user relationships, you all know that you have to keep giving the users what they want. And if the users want cryptocurrency now, what they're going to want soon is the ability to earn interest on their cryptocurrency. And then they're going to want to be able to use their cryptocurrency in protocols related to derivatives and so on and so on. And the people who give them that access are going to be the people who retain their business. So I think fintechs and banks should really, really seriously consider if this is or isn't going to continue. And if it is going to continue, it's not going to be small. It's not going to be a small percentage of their business. It's not going to be a small thing. It's going to be a big thing. It's going to be the way the entire lending industry works, the entire derivatives industry works. Just like there's so many people right now putting their assets into cryptocurrencies, and the prediction was, cryptocurrencies won't even exist a few years from now. So I think there should be a very serious reconsideration by fintechs and banks about just how quickly this will become a key competitive question for them.
That, I think, is just about as perfect a place to wrap up as I can possibly imagine.